it wouldn't have been easy doing all of those experiments in the field without all of the modern amenities that are at hand. Back then, if you were to, let's say, go on a voyage of exploration in one of those older ships like Charles Darwin did, it would have been excruciating. And not only that, you would probably be contracting diseases that are not common for your people to contract, right? Let's say you are someone who's from Europe. European people, they are they are accustomed to certain kinds of diseases. Their gene codes are accustomed to handling certain kinds of diseases. They go on to the Galapagos Islands. They move to the Galapagos Islands for research. When you did not have this level of development in the medical field as well, getting a disease when you moved to those far off places wasn't uncommon. It was, in fact, life threatening in most cases. People didn't even know what those diseases were. And again, science for centuries has been the, you know, what do you call it? The nemesis of religion. People like Ibn Rushd and Galileo and Ibn Sina, these people were put under house arrest, executed, uh, their reputation was tarnished for centuries. And make no mistake, who was holding up that social order? Women were complicit in holding up that social order. Women are complicit at holding up social norms of a time period, be it in the 16th century or be it in the 21st century, who are the pioneers and craftsmen of censorship and cancel culture. 90% of the times it's women, right? There's a reason that women did not move into fields of science, because back then the common knowledge, offending the common knowledge of the folk, and this is not just men, offending the common knowledge of women as well, would have led to your death. And if you think that women were not the ones holding up religion, why is it that women were the ones always reporting other women and sometimes men for witchcraft? Because whatever is the common norm of society is what women care about. Women do not care about the objective truth. They do not care about science on average to the same extent as the average dude. Yes, there are exceptions. I'm not going to tell you that there are not exceptions. But the truth is, when science meant going up against societal beliefs, when science meant not, what do you call it? When it did not mean social prestige and high placement, when it meant heresy, women did not go up against religion and worked for science and they would rather do the stuff that was easy to do. They would rather preserve their reputation than contribute to society, development of society. So, this is the funny part. I hear a lot of women say, "Oh, this system was set up by men. This system was set up by men, and women are still succeeding in that system. They have still left men behind." Because, first of all, yes, sure, the system was set up by men. It was only set up by men because men are more intelligent and because men are the ones forming most social structures. You know, that is what Roy Baumeister talks about. It was not because women were left out of those societal structures, but because women did not want to take the risks associated with making those social structures. They did not contribute to making that stuff back in the day when it was much more risky. It was not that men banded together to oppress women. Exact words from Roy Baumeister. The exact sentence that he said was, it was not because men banded together to oppress women, but because cultural and social developments arose from the sphere of men and the sphere of men only, and the female cultural sphere and the female sphere was limited to one-on-one intense relationships and excluded almost everything else. They would call it oppression and ask for special treatment. That is what happens when they eventually got the capabilities, the abilities to work on an equal footing with men on some jobs, they still ask for special treatment. And again, while the system might be made by men, just because it's made by men doesn't mean it favors men. Here's something interesting. The I heard a feminist on Reddit, and I know Guidance Vault also talked about this, that it's masturbating to the same ideas. Reddit is essentially masturbating to the same fucking ideas over and over again. So I saw one of those feminists talk about, oh, the schooling system. How can you say the schooling system favors women? It was built after depression military model. It was built after military models, and men have always been taught like this. Yes, men were always taught like this. The difference is when women finally get into those institutions, they are not taught and treated in the same way men were and are treated in those institutions. Yes, sure, men have made these institutions. It's a fucking vehicle. Yeah, sure, men have made these institutions, but men have made these institutions, like Roy Baumeister again points out, in order to gain leverage from women. They would do pretty much anything to provide what women want in order to get something in return. That is why those oofy doofies always give women whatever they want in exchange for quite literally nothing. So when women enter schools, what happens is, and I have made multiple posts about this, you can probably go to the community tab and check this one out. Women are given, let's say when a man and a woman both score a B grade or a C grade, and if you are from this part of the globe, like India, let's say she scores 70% marks, right, and the guy also scores 70% marks. Women are given inflated feedback. When she scores 70% or she gets B grade, she is praised for her hard work, while the guy is praised. No, what am I saying? The guy is not praised. Not only is he not praised, he is criticized head to toe. And what that leads to is a lack of motivation in young boys. And people often point to how male children are not likely to sit, how male children would benefit from a recess. What they generally do not talk about is playfulness is actually on the base level common in both male and female children, right? So why is it that the girls stop being naughty and that sounded wrong. Why is it that the girls stop being disobedient and the boys remain being disobedient? There's a very interesting study on this as well, because when girls and boys are both young, like that kind of young, the playful boys are deemed more disruptive and punished much more. Also, female bullies, they get away with harsh physical bullying, right? So they are treated with care and kindness and love, and just like the justice system, with the boys, their role is punishment. With the girls, their role is rehabilitation. When you think about rehabilitation, when you think about positive reinforcement and understanding someone, and fixing the problems that might be causing them to be disobedient, you might actually turn them good. You might actually make them understand that you love them. But when you do not love them, when your sole virtue is punishing them for what they have done, when your sole virtue is alienating them for what they have done. And the research was quite interesting. Because of this harsh punishment from teachers, the students, the peers of those class clowns, quote unquote, who initially had positive views of those boys, those peers, they eventually started having negative views of those class clowns, and that reflected in their own beliefs about themselves, and this prompted them to rebel against the institution. Maybe this has always been the case. Maybe people have always treated boys like this. But when women do walk into institutions like those, they perform better, not because they are better than men, but because they're treated better, and handled with more love and respect than men ever were or are. That leads guys to rebel. That leads guys to stand up against the authority, because they understand from a very early age that the authority is their enemy.
Gonna fix society, like the problem of men in general, it needs to be done between.
Yeah, they always flip all of these problems of men and say, oh, this was caused by the patriarchy. Men set up the system. Men set up the system. Dude, men set up the system because you were fucking dumb, because you did not want to take risks, because you cannot form large, shallow networks. Men created this, and also men created the system in order to get favors from you. It helped you more than it helped men. It was not some conspiracy by men to keep you down. If that was the case, the feminist movement would have been shut down by men to begin with. It was not some conspiracy by men, but rather you had your own physical shortcomings, you had your own psychological shortcomings, and that is the reason men had to create those social structures. And it doesn't mean that if you created those social structures, there would be less discrimination against men, there would be less discrimination even against women. If you can call any of that stuff discrimination. Men face much more discrimination in society, in a society made by men. Now you can only imagine how much discrimination they would face in a society made by women. Because the fundamental idea was not discrimination, it was not a gender biased system, it was a pressure biased system. And like people who can take on the pressures, who are best suited to take on those kinds of stresses, those are the ones who survived. And it was not because women were oppressed and kept out of those institutions, but because women did not want to take part in those institutions. That is the only difference. The only difference between this boogeyman of patriarchy and the modern society that we have today is nothing has been done to mitigate the disadvantages of men, even partly. It is still a pressure system. It is still a system where the ones best suited to surviving in it survive. It's not a system where there has suddenly been equality. It's not. It's just that women are having it slightly easier. They have overcome their disadvantage and have a selective advantage in certain cases. And this is why you should never fall for that. Oh, these things are caused by patriarchy. You should support feminism. Because, dude, that quote unquote patriarchy already fucked up men. It was just a system of compromise. And men have always had to compromise more. It was not some patriarchy. It was an era of compromise. Get this through your head. Get this through your skull. And this system is even more fucked up than the previous system. And they're trying to convince you that it's somehow going to solve your problems as a man. What can be said, man? What can I say? What can I say? Like, everything has been repeated, and I'm probably so fucking autistic. I've repeated everything twice, but yeah. See you guys in the next one. And upon it, then know your place in life and act accordingly. And also probably subscribe to Guidance Spot because I am subscribing to him.